Begin today the Gemara on Daf Nun Vav Amud Aleph, 4 lines from the top of the Amud. So the Gemara here will bring the halacha l'maaseh regarding the machlokes we had before in the Mishnah between Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and the Tanna Kama when it comes to the additions that the husband added to the Kesubos. Are they included in the payment of the Kesubos if the husband passed away or she got divorced after Edison, after the first stage of marriage? Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says the husband did not plan on giving the Kesubos these additions at that point. Tanna Kama says no, he did. So the question is, who do we pass on? Like Yosef Rab Chanina, Kamed Rab Yanai, sitting in front of Rab Yanai, v'ka'omar, and he said, Halacha ke Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. The halacha is like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. She gets the full Kesubos, she does not get the full Kesubos from the time of Edison, only at the time of Nesuin. In other words, the Tosfos, the additions. Amalei, so Rabbi Yanai said to him, Puk kri karach lebra, go and say the halacha that you said outside. Because ein halacha ke Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. We do not paskin like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. The Gemara goes through many different Amirim that spoke about this, whether we paskin like him or not. Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi mishum Rabbeinu. Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi said in the name of Rabbeinu, which is Rav, halacha ke Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, we do paskin like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel, Rav Nachman said in the name of Shmuel, halacha ke Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, that we paskin like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rav Nachman Didei Amar, Rav Nachman himself though disagreed. Ein halacha ke Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. He said that we do not paskin like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. V'nerdoi mishmei Rav Nachman Omri. In Nerdoi they would say in the name of Rav Nachman, halacha ke Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, that we do paskin like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Now the Gemara brings regarding what Rav Nachman's opinion is, that va'afal gav the lot Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman would curse and he would say, va'amar kol dayane de don ke Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, any judge that will paskin like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, hachi v'achi tehevi. This and this should happen to him. Not just something negative should happen to him. Afila hachi halacha ke Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. But nevertheless, the halacha is like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. And the Gemara itself, after all of these Amirayim that spoke about this, concludes and says, the halacha l'maaseh ke Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Halacha in practice, the payal, is like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, that you don't get the full Kesubos with the additions that the husband was said for his wife only after the full marriage. So the Gemara, so now we know that Allah is like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. So the Gemara asks a question according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. So the question was asked according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Nichnasa l'chuppah. She already entered into chuppah. So the chuppah is the yichud. This is the nisuin, when the husband and the wife move in together. But v'loy nivalo, he was not boiler yet. There were no marital relations. So the question is, if after this he passes away or he decides to divorce her, does she get all the Tosfos Kesubos or not? So Mao, what's the question here? So chibas chuppah kaine, do I say that the love that's expressed from the fact that now she moved in with him, so when he promised those additional things in the Kesubos, so for after this she gets it, or chibas bia kaine, or it's the love in the marital relations, that's the reason why, that's when he really is ready to give all these additional things to her if he divorces her or he dies. So the Gemara brings a raya from a lashon that it says in the Braisa. The Tani Rav Yosef, when he learned the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, so the way he learned it was, Sholei kosav lo ela al chibas laila harishain. That Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is saying that you do not give the additional things in the Kesubos after the Edison. And he says why? Because he only wrote those additional things that he's giving her because of the love that there is expressed Malayla Arishan, in the first night of marriage. That's the expression that it says in the Braisa. Now this is not a very clear expression. When it uses the term Laila Harishan, what does Laila Harishan mean? So the Gemara is going to go through over here a whole discussion. How do we understand Laila Harishan? So if you'll say that what Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah meant to say is that after the chuppah, the fact that there was a chuppah, that itself is the reason why the husband is giving all of those additions in the Kesubos. So Haina da Ama Laila Arishan. This could explain the expression of the Braisa when it says Laila Arishan. What does Laila Arishan mean? The first night, that's when the chuppah is. It's only one time. Chuppah is not more than once. But if you're going to say it's the love that the husband asked for the bia, the fact that they're living together, the marital relations, and that's the reason why he's giving her the additional things for the Kesubos. Bia b'layla harishin isa. So be it, marital relations is only the first night of the marriage, and mekan ve'elech lesa, and following this you don't have bia. Why would it use this expression in the Braise, Laila Arishin? It's not only Laila Arishin. So the term Laila Arishin seems to be saying that we're talking about the chuppah. But now the Gemara asks, wait, but if you say it's chuppah, it's also not, this expression of Laila Arishin is also not understood. Ve'ela mai chuppah. So what are you saying? This Braise tells us that the main point of why the husband is giving all these things is because of the chuppah. But chuppah b'layla is b'yamama lesa. But if it means chuppah, so then the expression of Laila Arishin is still strange. Why does he use the term Laila? Laila means only at night. The chuppah is only at nighttime and not daytime. You don't have a chuppah during the day. Why does he use the term Laila Arishin? Chuppah can be by day as well. So the Gemara asks back. So what is your reasoning? Because it uses the term Laila. Laila does not refer to the bia. Again, Laila does not refer to the chuppah, but it refers to the bia. But bia, balayla is biyamama lesa. But regarding bia as well, you could ask the same question. Why does he use the term Laila at nighttime? That marital relations is only at nighttime, which is indicating and not by daytime. Is that true? That the bia is only by night and not by day? But Rav said, that if a person is in a dark room, so then mutter, marital relations are allowed by day like by night. So why it does not explain why it uses the expression in the Braisa of Laila Arishin, if you're going to say it refers to bia. So the Gemara says, ha loy kasha. No, if it refers to bia, the fact that it uses the expression of Laila is not a question. Because oirach ara kamash malan, it's telling you what the ordinary custom is. The bia balayla, that bia, the married relations, is at night. But ella chuppah kasha. But if you're saying that it refers to chuppah, so then the question is, why does it say Laila? Why would chuppah be dafka by night and not by day? So the Gemara says, lav dafka, that's not a question either. Chuppah nami loy kasha. Even if we're going to say that it refers to the chuppah, it's not a question the fact that it says night. Why? Kivin, the stam, chuppah, lebia, kaima. Because chuppah is for the purpose of bia. A person is bringing his wife into his home. The chuppah, or under the chuppah, there's different pirushim of chuppah, but let's say chuppah refers to the yichud, the fact that he brings her into his home. So what is the purpose of it? Bia, the married relations. So therefore, kamash the balayla boy. So therefore the Braisa, although it's speaking about chuppah, but nevertheless it uses the term laila, even though the actual chuppah could have been by day, but he's letting you know that the purpose of the chuppah is the bia, which is at night. So therefore, when it says there in the Braisa, laila harishain could refer to chuppah. Boy, Ravashi now asks another question. So if we're going to say that from chuppah forward, she would get all the taisvus ksuba. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah would agree at this point, even without the bia, but the chuppah itself, she gets all the additions of the ksuba that the husband promised her. But now there's another scenario, that there was a chuppah, but it appears a nida. Right after the chuppah, the wife becomes a nida. So he can't have any relations with her. So now, what's going to be the halacha now? If you're going to say that the halacha is like we said before, that it's the love from the chuppah itself. That's kaina, these additions of the ksubah. So maybe I could say that's only chuppah the chazia lebiyah. If it's a chuppah that is fit for her to be able to have marital relations with her, that she's tired, he's able to be with her. But a chuppah that you cannot then have any relations with her because she became a nida. This is what's known as a chuppah's nida, a case where the wife is a nida and he can't have any relations with her. So maybe in such a case that love is not there, and therefore what he promised, all those taisvus ksuba that he promised, he's not obligated to give her yet. Or maybe it doesn't matter. If we say that the chuppah is kaina, it doesn't make a difference if the chuppah, if she's a nida, if the wife is a nida or not. Teiku, the Gemara does not resolve this question. Going back to the Mishnah, it said in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yudah Ratza Kaisav L'Psula, regarding the full amount of the ksubah. So in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda said that there is the amount that you're supposed to write, the Manna, the Messiah, but nevertheless, if the wife wants, she could write and write to her husband that I already received 100 by a Pesula, or by an Almana. She could write to the husband, I already received 50. So now the husband will only have to pay half. She didn't get that half, but she's writing. She's sort of being meichel by writing to the husband, I already got half. So you only have to give me half of the ksubah. She's allowed to do that. Sagt the Gemara, so Rabbi Yehuda, so it said them again. It said in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda, Ratza Kaisav L'Psula, B'chol. In fact, the Gemara V'Sava Rabbi Yehuda. Could we understand it from our Mishnah that Rabbi Yehuda holds the Kais V'N Shover, that you write a receipt, and this is in all kinds of situations, like for example by a loan, if someone paid up the loan, so do you write a receipt and give the loiva, the borrower, a receipt for the fact that he paid up the loan? But vatna, so that's what it says. It seems from here, from our Mishnah, what are we saying? That the wife is writing to the husband a receipt that I already got half of Yuksubah, and therefore he only has to pay her half. But vatnan, we learned a Mishnah about this, a machlekes, and Rabbi Yehuda holds you don't write a receipt. And he says as follows: Misha para miktsas chayvei, person that paid half of the loan. So what do you do now? The original shtar says that he owes $1,000, and now you paid $500. So what do you do now? Rabbi Yehuda says yachlef. You have to switch the shtar. You have to take the shtar that says 1,000 and tear it, and write a new shtar that says 500. And as Rashi explains, the reason is we don't want to give the borrower a receipt that he already paid 500, because then you're making life difficult for the borrower. He's going to have to watch this receipt that it shouldn't get lost, or Rashi says mice shouldn't eat it up. So why should we place the responsibility on the borrower? So therefore, Yachlef, what we say to the lender is, we're going to give you a new shtar, and the new shtar is going to say 500, and therefore the borrower won't have to have that responsibility. So we don't write a receipt according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi says, Yichtiv lo shover. No, you do write a receipt for the borrower, because this is actually for the benefit of the lender. As Rashi explains, if you're going to be writing you're tearing up the old shtar and you're writing a new shtar, that means you're writing a new shtar with a new date. That's a little bit of a loss for the lender, because if he had the earlier date, that gives him more options to collect from properties from an earlier date that were in the possession of the loiva. But if he has now a shtar with a later date, that means that the loan begins at this new later date, so the liens on the properties also begins only at this later date. But nevertheless, so Rabbi Yossi says so again, because we want it to be for the benefit of the lender, so therefore we write a shaver for the borrower so he could still have the original date of the old shtar.
So it's starting now. Still liens weiter.
No, but not if you have a new shtar. If you tore up the old shtar, you can't have the shibud from the previous date. Exactly. The date on the previous shtar, the shtar was torn up already. So you're going to go according to the date of the new. When you write a new shtar, you have to write a new date. Right. Okay. So the lien is only going to be from the new date. So you lose out. You lose out from this. The shibudim of the previous karkois. So we have a question here. We have here a contradiction. In our Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says that the wife is writing a shaver. She's writing to the husband a receipt that I got half. And over here we clearly see in this Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says we don't write a receipt for the loiva. We just switch the shtar. Rabbi Yirmiyah explains in our Mishnah as well, when it says that she writes that I received half, or it was that she doesn't give this as a receipt to the husband. Rather, what she's doing is the receipt is being written into the ksubah itself. You write the whole ksubah, and in the ksubah itself, she writes and she adds another line in the ksubah that although it says over here that he's giving me 200, I already got 100. So it's not a separate document that she's giving to the husband that he has to hold on to. In the ksubah itself that the woman has, it's written in it that she already got paid half. Baya answers differently. Over here in the Mishnah, even if this receipt that she's writing that she got half, even if it's not written in the ksubah, she's giving this as a separate receipt to the husband. So the question is, so why do we write a receipt? If according to Rabbi Yehuda we don't write a receipt. Says the Gemara, there's a huge difference between the case of the ksubah here and the case of the loan, when a person paid half. We can understand why Rabbi Yehuda said when you paid half. So Vadei Pare, he actually paid half of the loan. So therefore Rabbi Yehuda is saying it's not right to write a receipt, because Dilma Mirchas, if the loiva is the one that now has to watch this receipt, he might lose it. The Mirchas Tevarta, the receipt will be lost. Then Omapik Leila Shtara, the Malva will take out the shtar, the document that says the full amount that he owes him. He'll go and collect a second time, even though it was already partially paid. So over there, we're talking concern. A receipt is not a good idea. You're placing an extra responsibility on the loiva, and it's possible the Malva will wait long enough and he'll know that this receipt got lost and will collect a second time. But what happened over here with this ksubah we're speaking about? Vada Yavla is the case over here that the husband actually paid her after the ksubah. He didn't pay her anything. Milsa ba'almihi da'amrele. She's just writing it to him. She's forgiving. She's writing to him that you gave me half. So therefore, when she gives this to the husband, it's his choice. Not today. If he's going to guard this receipt he got, so then he has it. Now he won't have to pay more than half. But not today, if he's not going to guard it, so he would have to then have shay. So it's his own loss. He's going to have to pay the full ksubah. He's not paying something extra that he doesn't really owe. This is the full amount of the ksubah that he really owes. Elamai, if he wants to keep that receipt that she forgave him, so he'll have it. If not, not. So over here, we're not concerned about the fact that he may lose his receipt. So we have here these two answers, Abaye and Rabbi Yirmiyah. So the Gemara says, Bishleim Abaye lo amakin Rabbi Yirmiyah. We could understand why Abaye did not accept Rabbi Yirmiyah's answer that the receipt that she writes was written into the ksubah itself. It's because it doesn't seem so in the words of the Mishnah. It doesn't say in our Mishnah that she writes this as a receipt inside the ksubah itself. So therefore Abaye didn't accept that answer. El Rabbi Yirmiyah, my time alama Abaye. Why didn't Rabbi Yirmiyah accept Abaye's answer? Abaye's answer is so logical. There's a huge difference between a loan where you actually pay the loan, so we don't want the loan to be paid again, where over here, it's just like the Gemara says, Milsa Balma the Amr law, she didn't get paid anything, she's just forgiving it. Why didn't Rabbi Yirmiyah agree to this difference? So the Gemara says, because Rabbi Yirmiyah held, Gzeire Shoiver Dahacha Oto Shoiver Dalma. Because Chachamim would make a decree that even though over here there is no issue with writing a receipt, but nevertheless, if you're going to write a receipt here, you may come to write a receipt elsewhere where it will be a problem. So therefore, according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, you don't write a receipt ever, even in a case where it's just a milsa ba'alma, where you didn't actually get paid yet. So therefore, he gave the answer. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the only way you write a receipt is if you're writing it into the original shtar, into the original ksubah itself. Now the Gemara has another question on this whole concept here. What did it say in our Mishnah? Rabbi Yehuda is telling you that if you want to change the agreement of the ksubah, the amount of money that the husband owes, what do you have to do? She has to write in a document to him that I forgive half of the ksubah. Says the Gemara, time at the kosfele. That means the only way she could forgive the ksubah is, or half of the ksubah is, if she wrote this. Aval al peh loy, if she says to him verbally, and she makes a condition with him that I'll be married to you even if you don't give me the full ksubah. So verbally, that's not accepted. But why not? This is a matter pertaining to money, to the amount of money that the husband would owe her. We know that Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is when a person makes these kinds of conditions regarding money matters, even if it's an obligation that the Torah obligates you to pay, but if you want to change that obligation and make your own condition regarding this, so the condition you make is accepted. Tanya, we learned in Abraisa. A person says to his wife, you are my wife, you mekudeshes, only with the condition that I have no obligations for you. The three basic obligations, as we learned before in the Gemara, food, clothing, and the marital relations, I have no obligations to you. So, if he makes this condition, the condition takes effect, but a tnoi bottle, the entire conditions that he made is all batal. And the reason for this is because you can't make a tnai on mashakasav b'Torah. If the Torah says that if you're married, you have these obligations for your wife, making any condition will not change the obligation the Torah says. It's just like any mitzvah. The Torah obliges you to do a mitzvah. You're going to make a condition on the Torah made. This is marriage. You have these conditions, so therefore you can't be masna mashakasav b'Torah. The tnai is batal. However, Rabbi Yehuda says there's a distinction here. When it comes to a money matter, tanoi kayam. The tanai is kayam. When it comes to the obligations a man has to his wife, it's not the area of money, so here you can't be masna what it says in the Torah. But when it comes to money, money is something that she could choose to be meichel. So if she accepts and she's meichel the money obligation he has to her, the tanai is kayam, even verbally. So why does it say in our Mishnah that when they make the Tanai verbally, it wouldn't make any change? It only has to be written with a receipt or into the Ksubah. So the Gemara answers there's a difference. Ksubah Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is Ksubah de Rabbanon. The whole obligation of a Ksubah is only a rabbinical, it's midrabanon. Because it's midrabanon, Chachamim came and wanted to strengthen their institution even more than Torah. Although an obligation in Torah, you could make a condition regarding money matters verbally, and to nullify the obligation in Torah, but nevertheless, by something which is midrabanon, they strengthened their institution, and therefore they said that unless you're going to write it, it's not going to take effect. Fragt the Gemara, but is this true that when it comes to a Rabbanon thing, that a verbal agreement will not nullify the obligation? The obligation of Peiris. What is Peiris referring to? These are the properties that a wife brings into the marriage, which is always known as Nichse Maluk. So what's the halacha of all these properties? The husband could eat from the fruits of the properties. It still belongs to her. The actual principle, the properties itself belongs to her, but the husband could eat the fruits from this. And this is also a takana midrabanan. Chacham instituted the husband has the right to eat from it. And over here we don't find Rabbi Yehuda himself speaks about this, and we don't find it that Rabbi Yehuda says that Chachamim came and strengthened their takana, that you can't verbally revoke this takana. Because we learned in the Mishnah, here later in the Masechta, Rabbi Yehuda says, Lo'ilam hu'oichel peire peiris. He continues to eat the peiris of the peiris. Now, this is the beginning of that Mishnah. What it's speaking about over there is, as Rashi over here brings, if a person writes, or not writes, as we'll see, if a person, if a person writes and says, Din dvara mainly bin chasecha b'peirisei, and a person writes to his wife, I have no rights, I have no connection to any of your possession and any of your fruits. I'm not going to eat it from any from your fruits. Okay, so he wrote that to her, so he can't eat from any of her fruits. But Rabbi Yehuda says, he said he won't eat from any of the fruits of the properties. But how about the peire peiris? Peire peiris is what happens if his wife takes all the produce and she sells it. And then with the money that she got, she buys another property. So that's not the peiris itself that grew, but it's the peiris of the peiris. He only wrote to her that I'm not going to eat from the peiris of the property. But if it's secondary peiris, so then that he can still eat from her. Unless the husband writes to her and he spells out clearly, Din udvarim einli b'nechasecha, I have no rights, nothing in any of your possessions, ube peiris or any of the peiris of your properties, ube peiris or any of the fruits ad olam, forever. You're going to sell the fruits, you're going to buy another property, there'll be whatever it is, I have nothing to do with any of your properties forever. I'm not going to have any benefit from it. So that's what it says there. Rabbi Yehuda says that when the husband writes this, it'll take effect, which means it'll nullify the takana midrabanan that a husband could eat from these fruits. Now we know what's the pshat in that Mishnah. We'll see it later here in the Masechta. My kaisef, when it says that the husband writes this to his wife, what does it mean when it says writes it? It doesn't mean writes. It means oimer. He says, even by saying this to his wife, verbally, the condition takes effect and it nullifies his right to eat from the fruits. So this is a contradiction to what we said before, that when it comes to a institution with the Rabbanon, Chachamim wanted to strengthen their institution, and just verbally making an agreement does not take effect. You have to actually write it. But over here we see that saying it is good enough. Amar Abaye, so Abaye says there's a distinction. Lakoil yesh ksubah. Ksubah is something that there is for every single marriage. That's a takanim of the Rabbanon for every marriage, that he has to pay the ksubah. But v'lela kol yesh peiris. But peiris, which is a wife that brings in properties and there's fruits that he eats, that's not by every marriage. Many times there's nothing that she brings in. There are no peiris at all. So milsa the shchiche, something which is common. It's always every marriage of the Rabbanan chizuk. That's a kind of institution that Chachamim instituted, that they strengthened it, that you can't verbally change it. Milsa the loishchiche, but when it comes to the takana of the husband eating peiris, which is not common, here Chachamim did not come and strengthen their takana that you can't uproot it verbally. But the Gemara now has another example of a case where you see, according to Rabbi Yehuda as well, that Chachamim did not strengthen their institution. But you have the case of the chamorim, the people that are driving donkeys and they're bringing merchandise into a city. And they're offering, these are like peddlers that come on their donkeys to sell their merchandise in the city or sell their produce in the city. The shchichi, and this is something which is common, and there's a takana that Chachamim instituted, and we see that Chachamim did not strengthen their takana. What's the case? And we had this earlier in the Masechta. There's a Mishnah that says, and this Mishnah refers to these peddlers that are amaratzim. What's the halacha of peddlers that are amaratzim, amaretz, that has produce to sell? By an amaretz, whatever produce he has is called demai. We learned about this yesterday as well. Demai means damai. We're not sure what this is because we can't rely on them to give meiser. So you have these peddlers that come into the city, two friends. And one of them says, Shali chadash, the produce that I have is fresh, new, and what my friend has is old. Rashi actually explains what this means is, he's saying that my friend's merchandise, my friend's produce is better than mine. Rashi says chodosh is still moist and it can't be used right away. You have to still wait until it dries up in order for it to be able to be ground and to be used for flour. So he's saying, buy from my friend. My friend has better produce than me. What I have is still moist and my friend's is old and hard and it's good, you can use it. He says, Shali ein mesukin. The produce that I have, the maestris was not separated from it yet. If you buy from my friend, his produce is separated. So ein amanim. We don't trust them. Why not? Because it seems like we can never know what's going on over here. It's possible that they're collaborating with one another. They say to each other, listen, when I come into this city, you're going to say that you have bad produce and I have the good produce. Then we're going to come into the next city, we'll do the reverse. I'll say for you. And it'll look like we're very honest because this person is going to say, I don't have the good produce. He does. So it looks like he's being very honest. But really, this is they're just collaborating together in order that people should trust them to buy from each other. So therefore we don't believe them. And the main thing, the point is regarding the maestris. They're amaratzim, and therefore we don't believe them to say that the maestris was taken from this. Rabbi Yehuda, but Rabbi Yehuda says, nemanim, they are believed. Even though it could be possible that they're collaborating over here, but nevertheless we do accept what they're saying. So the question is, that we're dealing over here with the issue of demai, which is a takana midrabban. You have to take maestros again. And we see that Rabbi Yehuda is lenient about this. And Rabbi Yehuda says that when they come and tell us this, that they took maestros, although they're amaratzim, we believe them. So why Rabbi Yehuda is the one that says that when it comes to a takana midrabban, chachamim make a chizuk, they want to strengthen their takana. Why is Rabbi Yehuda the one that says over here that we believe them, although they're amaratzim? Abaye says there's a distinction. When there's a takana midrabbanan that they made a takana based on a certain point and a fact that's a vadai, there's no doubts about this. So of the rabbana chizuk. For this, chachamim instituted an obligation or whatever it may be. Chachamim came and strengthened their obligation. Safed, what we had before in the Gemara, the ksube, the peiris, or actually not the peiris because it's not shchiach, but the ksube. This is a vadai takana chachamim made. Safed the devreim over here when it comes to demai, which chachamim were misakin, but they were misakin the fact that you have to give maestros by demai because of a doubt, because it's not 100% sure that he gave the full maestros yet. For this, chachamim did not make a chizuk. Rava says, "B'demai hikilu." B'chlal we find regarding demai, even amongst all things that chachamim instituted out of a doubt, but the doubt by the suffix of demai, chachamim actually were more lenient than any other takanas that they made in a case of a suffix, and the reason is Rashi brings there because Roiv Amaratzim do give maestros. There is a shtickle suffix because some don't, but Roiv do, so therefore the whole takana midrabbanan is really only a chumrah. So therefore, over here, Rabbi Yehuda says we can be lenient about it. Rab Meir says you can't make any of these conditions that she's going to say. I already got half of the ksubah. Rab Meir says you have to give the full amount of the ksubah. And the lashon that Rab Meir uses in the Mishnah is kol ha'peiches. Rab Meir oimer kol ha'peiches, that anybody that's going to say that he's giving less than a masayim to the psula and for an almana, so then what? Harezu bilas nus. The whole marriage does not take effect, and he's living with his wife without marriage. It's nus. So the Gemara now is medayik, this expression that the Mishnah says. Kol ha-peiches. He uses the expression the Mishnah here is kol ha-peiches, that one that says that he's going to give less. Afila bitna, even when he makes a condition. He's making a condition with her at the time of marriage that he's going to give less. That's the expression of the Mishnah. So, as Rashi points out, the main diuk of the Gemara over here is, why doesn't the Mishnah use a clearer, more straightforward expression? Why doesn't the Mishnah just simply say that a basula that's not getting masayim, or an almana that's not getting a mana, harezu bilas nus? Why does the Mishnah use the expression of kol ha-peiches? Kol ha-peiches refers to the condition that the husband makes, that he's making this condition with her to give her less. Does that mean that she's actually getting less? Not necessarily. Kol ha-peiches refers to the condition that he makes. The Mishnah could have just simply said, if she gets less than 200 or 100, then it's bi'elas nus. Then this is no marriage. But instead, the Mishnah said, kol ha-peiches, if he says he's going to give less. Now, what's the distinction here? It says the Gemara, alma kasavar, what I see over here is, tanoi batal. He says he's going to give less, but the truth is, the condition doesn't even take effect. Ve'esla. And really, she's going to get the full amount. So v'kiv in the amala, but because he said to her that he's going to give her that less loch, that you're not going to get the full amount, elaman, you're going to only get half. Loi samcha daita. She's not fully relying on the fact that she's going to get the full amount. Even though al pi halacha, the truth is that in the end she's going to get it. But he made a condition. He said he's going to be peiches, so she's not relying on it. She's going to get the full amount. Bi lasai bi lasnos. And therefore, even with this itself, the whole marriage is going to be his nus. So there's a very big chiddush here. Not only if she actually gets less, but even just making this condition, saying this, even though it doesn't take effect, the marriage is it's his nus. It doesn't take, the whole marriage doesn't take effect.
How about if she says in Meichel the same thing?
Again, yeah, okay. If she says that she's going to be Meichel, yeah. So according to Rab Meir B'chlal, you can't be masnal mashakasa b'teira. So fragt the Gemara v'ashamin and leila Rab Meir, but isn't Rab Meir's opinion the Gemara here brings right now? Didn't Rab Meir say kol al masnal mashakasa b'teira tanoi bottle, that if someone makes a condition and you're going against what it says in the Torah? And what did the Gemara bring before? What's a condition in the Torah? The obligations of a husband to the wife, she'er ksus v'ayna, the food, the clothing, and the marital relations. So if you make a condition that you won't provide that your t'nai is batal. Says the Gemara, but ha b'derabanan tanoi kayam. But if it's only midrabanan, the t'nai is kayam. So therefore, over here the question is that if she says that she's ready to take only half, so then since the obligation of Kesubos is only midrabanan, so shouldn't the condition take effect? And therefore, why shouldn't the marriage take effect? So the Gemara answers, Kesubos Rab Meir. Rab Meir's opinion is Kesubos d'oraisa, that the Kesubos is minat Torah, right? So we see over here in the Gemara we had before, right, that Rabbi Yehuda said that the Kesubos is midrabanan. Rab Meir holds Kesubos is minat Torah. So Taisus over here points out that the truth is that everybody holds that a Kesubos by an almana is only midrabanan. So how could the Gemara here say Kesubos d'oraisa, that every Kesubos is minat Torah? So Taisus explains what the Gemara is saying is, since the original Kesubos by a basula is minat Torah, even by an almana, where the Kesubos is only midrabanan, but nevertheless the source of the concept of Kesubos comes from the pasuk Mayer Apsulois. So therefore, according to Rab Meir, this is still considered to be in the category of minat Torah, that you can't make a condition to be mevatel this. Now the Gemara brings a brisa regarding the very same subject, but here there are three opinions in this brisa. Tanya Rab Meir said, "Kol ha'peiches l'b'sulam mimasayim al'almana mana harei bilas nus." Rab Meir says, like he said in the Mishnah, that if you're going to give less than 200 for a basula, less than 100 for an almana, so the marriage doesn't take effect. Rabbi Yossi says you are allowed. You can make a t'nai not to give the Kesubos. This is only midrabanan, or maybe Rabbi Yossi holds you can make a t'nai even what it says in the Torah. So the t'nai takes effect. You don't have to give the full Kesubos, and the marriage is a marriage. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Ratza kaisav lebasula." You can change the obligation of the Kesubos, but you have to write it. So the psula writes shtar shel mesayim. So you write to her that you're giving her the regular amount of 200, and v'hi kaiseves loy, and she has to write back his kabalti mimcha, that I already received that mana, one mana. Well, almana mana, and for an almana you write the full amount of a mana. V'hi kaiseves loy is kabalti mimcha chamishim zuz, that I already got 50. Right, so this is like the Gemara already explained before, that according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Chachamim were extra machmer. They made a chizuk for their institution, and therefore only if she writes that she got half, then it'll cut down the Kesubos to half. Fragt the Gemara, the Sava Rabbi Yossi Rashoy, is Rabbi Yossi's opinion that you're allowed to minimize from the full amount of the Kesubos? Ramini, I'll ask you a contradiction on this from another place where Rabbi Yossi speaks about the obligation of paying a Kesubos. So it says in the Braisa, "Ein eising Kesubos isha metaltlin." You should not designate, a husband should not designate to pay his wife the money of the Kesubos movable items. Why not metaltlin? V'pnei tikkun olam. The reason is because this is an institution, because as Rashi says, any movable items, number one, it could get lost, so it's not reliable. And number two, the price fluctuation of metaltalin is much more than karkois. And therefore, you're going to say to your wife, here, I designate for you these things, but the price could drop drastically, and then she has nothing. Rabbi Yossi says, V'chima. Now, it's not very clear what Rabbi Yossi is arguing with the Tanakama, but first let's see the words of Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Yossi says, V'chima tikkun ha'olam yesh bezu. What kind of a tikkun olam is there here? If you're designating to pay from a metaltalin, so it's not set, the price goes up and down. So why would you be allowed to designate metaltalin to pay for your wife? So the Gemara right away clarifies what is Rabbi Yossi arguing with the Tanakama. Tanakama nami, ein oisin kama. The Tanakama said the same thing. You should not designate metaltalin for the payment of the Kesubos. Elalav hachikoma. So the pshat of the argument in this brayse is as follows. What the Tanakame holds is, when do I say that you should not designate metaltalin as the payment for the ksubah? If you did not accept additional responsibility, that if it gets lost, I'll take care of you and I'll pay you otherwise. If the husband took responsibility, he designates metaltalin, but he also says, and if these metaltalin gets lost, I take the responsibility to pay you. So then the Tanakama would say, you could designate metaltalin as a mode of payment for the ksubah. And on this, Rabbi Yossi comes and says, even if he's accepting responsibility, if it gets lost, it's not good enough. Why would you be allowed to designate the metaltalin for the payment? The issue is not only the fact that it could get lost, but the issue is also the price fluctuation. And the price could drop drastically, and therefore it's here, and he's going to say, take from here, and he didn't take any additional responsibility, it didn't get lost. So Rabbi Yossi says you should never designate metaltalin for the payment of the ksubah. So the Gemara says, if so, we have a contradiction here. So Hashta, the question is, if in a case where it's only a concern of maybe the price will go down, Rabbi Yossi is afraid that she won't get her full payment of the ksubah. So Hacha over here, the Vade Kapachsa lekol shekain, over here that she's minimizing the payment of her ksubah, for sure Rabbi Yossi would say that this is not acceptable. If it's only a concern he doesn't accept such a mode of payment, for sure to minimize the payment of the ksubah, Rabbi Yossi would not accept this. So the Gemara says, what kind of a question is this? Hachi hashta. How could you compare these two things? Hasam loyada de tachel. Over there, she didn't know, she didn't agree, she didn't make up her mind, b'chlal, that she's forgiving any part of the payment of the ksubah. So she wants the full ksubah, that's what was made up. So you can't designate metaltalin, which might not have the full value. Over here, what Rabbi Yossi is saying is, if she's willingly forgiving the ksubah, even verbally, she could say that she forgives the payment. Why not? She could be meichel this. Okay, I mean, it's a very simple answer. It's even a pella how the Gemara makes this comparison in the first place. Okay.